The Lost City of the Golden Jaguar. Chapter 1, Call of the Jungle. The hot, humid air of the Amazon jungle enveloped Derek, seeping through his sweat-drenched shirt. For a week, they had been hacking their way through the undergrowth, every step a struggle, and the malarial mosquitoes seemed the size of small birds. Derek, an archaeologist with a doctorate and an insatiable thirst for adventure, lowered his machete, wiping sweat from his brow. Behind him, breathing heavily, followed Lena, his longtime excavation partner and a brilliant linguist whose specialization in ancient Mesoamerican languages made her indispensable on their expeditions. Beside them, with an unchanging smirk on his face, walked Marcus, their guide, a jungle veteran whose scars told stories more dangerous than any book. "Derek, are you sure we're on the right track?" Lena's voice was hoarse from the heat and exhaustion. "This map, it's so indistinct." Derek unfurled the worn parchment map he'd acquired on the black market in Mexico City from a dubious dealer. It was adorned with strange symbols and contours resembling ruins. "It's entirely possible it's meant to be, Lena. The ancient Maya weren't fond of revealing their secrets. But I feel we're close. The stone we found in Palenque spoke of the lost city of the Golden Jaguar, and it had symbols strikingly similar to these." He pointed to a fragment of the drawing. "The Golden Jaguar. Legends about it are widespread from Yucatan to Guatemala," Lena murmured, thoughtfully surveying the dense foliage. "Some say it's just a myth, a beautiful story for tourists. And some say it's the greatest Mayan treasury, filled with gold, jade, and priceless artifacts," Marcus interjected, swatting away a swarm of insects. "And if it's true, many will want to find it." And he was right. Hot on their heels was a certain Mr. Vargas, a ruthless artifact collector known for his willingness to step over anyone to get what he wanted. Vargas wasn't an archaeologist, he was a merchant for whom history and culture were mere commodities. His men, mercenaries with cold eyes, were days behind them, and Derek knew it. "We need to move faster," Derek said. "The sooner we find it, the less chance Vargas has of catching up to us." Their path led through dense jungle, where every sound seemed like an ominous premonition. Monkeys shrieked overhead, brightly plumed birds darted past, and snakes slithered across the damp earth. Derek felt the tension in the air. This wasn't just an adventure, it was a race. A race for knowledge, for history, for something that could change their understanding of ancient civilizations. On the third day of their trek, as the sun began to set, Marcus stopped. "Look!" Before them, barely discernible through vines and undergrowth, loomed the outlines of ancient steps leading to something massive and overgrown. These weren't just ruins, this was the entrance to something grand. "Unbelievable," Lena whispered, forgetting her fatigue. This is unlike anything I've ever seen." Derek, feeling a rush of adrenaline, began hacking through the undergrowth. The closer they got, the clearer the outlines became. It was a pyramidal temple, covered in moss and vines, but its grandeur was undeniable. "The Maya, they were true masters," Derek said, running his hand over the carved stone. Faint hieroglyphs were visible on the wall. "It looks like an entrance to an underground labyrinth," Lena said, peering closer. "It says here, 'The path to the Jaguar's heart is hidden in its shadow.'" Marcus tensed. "The Jaguar's heart, is that some kind of trap?" "Possibly," Derek replied. "Or a key. We need to be careful." The temple entrance was narrow and dark, swallowing the last rays of the sun. The air inside was heavy and dusty, smelling of earth and time. They lit their lanterns, and their beams picked out stone walls covered in intricate bas-reliefs from the darkness. These depict sacrifice scenes, and gods, Lena whispered, studying the walls. Many gods. And look, here. A jaguar. On one wall, a massive jaguar was carved, its eyes inlaid with what appeared to be darkened gemstones. Below it lay a row of hieroglyphs. "What does it say, Lena?" Derek asked. Lena frowned, trying to decipher the ancient symbols. It's a riddle. When the sun kisses the stone, and the jaguar's shadow points the way, then its heart shall open. Strange, Marcus muttered. The sun is almost down. Derek looked around. It was almost dark inside the temple. Only a faint light filtered through narrow cracks above. He noticed a small opening in the ceiling, from which a weak ray of light fell. Perhaps it's meant to happen at dawn, he speculated. Or at a specific time of day when a sunbeam hits exactly here. They decided to set up camp inside the temple, sheltered from the dangers of the nocturnal jungle. While Marcus prepared a small fire, Lena and Derek continued to examine the hieroglyphs. "I think the key to this riddle lies in Mayan astronomy," Lena said. They were incredible astronomers. Perhaps it's related to a specific position of the sun or a star. In the middle of the night, as everyone slept, Derek suddenly felt the ground tremble. It was a faint but distinct tremor. He sat up abruptly, listening. "What was that?" Marcus whispered, also awake. Suddenly, from deep within the temple, a low, dull rumble sounded, as if something massive had shifted. "That's not an earthquake," Derek said, grabbing his backpack. "It sounds like we're not alone here." It was at that moment that footsteps echoed from the temple's darkness. Many footsteps. "Vargas," Lena whispered, her voice filled with despair. Figures with lanterns emerged from the darkness. They were Vargas's mercenaries, their faces hidden in shadow, but their weapons gleamed in the lantern light. Leading them was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a cold smile on his face. It was Vargas himself. Well, look who we have here," his voice was soft, yet menacing. "Dr. Derek Richards, the brilliant archaeologist. And Miss Lena Morales, your loyal linguist. I knew you couldn't pass up such a prize." "Vargas," Derek's voice was calm, though his stomach churned. "You're too late. We've already found what we were looking for." He was bluffing, but hoped it would buy them time. Vargas laughed. "Oh, really? And where is your Golden Jaguar? I see only a dusty, overgrown temple. But don't worry, you'll show me the way. And if you don't, well, then we'll find it ourselves. My men know how to be persuasive." He nodded to his men, and they slowly advanced, surrounding them. "You'll get nothing," Derek said. "Ancient Mayan treasures belong to the world, not to people like you." "To the world? Those are pretty words, Dr. Richards," Vargas sneered. "But the world won't pay as much as private collectors will for such an artifact. Now, if you please, show me what you found." The situation was hopeless. They were trapped, surrounded by armed men in the heart of an ancient temple. Derek looked at Lena, then at Marcus. He saw determination in their eyes. They wouldn't give up so easily. Chapter 2, The Riddle of the Shadow. "We have nothing," Derek said, trying to buy time. "We just arrived, like you." Vargas stepped forward, his gaze piercing. "Don't lie to me, Doctor. I know about your map. I know about your finds in Palenque. You're close. And I want you to help me finish what I started." He pulled a small but clearly very sharp knife from his belt. "Perhaps a small cut will make you more agreeable?" "Stop it!" Lena cried, stepping forward. "You wouldn't dare. This is vandalism." Vargas sneered. "Vandalism? Miss Morales, I am a businessman. And this is very valuable business. And I don't like to be hindered." He lunged with the knife towards Lena, but Derek managed to push her away in time. "Don't touch her!" Derek roared. At that moment, Marcus, who had been standing still all this time, suddenly lunged forward. He was incredibly fast. With one swift movement, he snatched a knife from one of Vargas's mercenaries, then knocked him to the ground. A brawl ensued. Derek and Lena, seizing the confusion, also rushed into the fray. Derek, though an archaeologist, possessed a strong grip and quick reflexes. He punched one of the mercenaries in the face, then tackled another. Lena, though not a fighter, managed to push one of Vargas's thugs against the stone wall, and he fell with a clang. But they were too few, and Vargas's mercenaries were too many. Within moments, they were surrounded and apprehended. Derek's hands were tied behind his back, and Lena was held firmly. Marcus, though he managed to land a few blows, was subdued. Vargas approached Derek, his face distorted with malice. "You'll regret this, Dr. Richards. Very much." He ordered his men to search their backpacks. The mercenaries rummaged through all their belongings, pulling out equipment, maps, and notes. One of them, a large man with a scorpion tattoo on his neck, held up a small but heavy bronze jaguar statuette that Derek had found in Palenque. "Boss, look!" He held out the statuette to Vargas. Vargas took the statuette, examining it carefully. His eyes gleamed. "This is it. I knew it. This is the key. This is what the informant spoke of." He turned to Derek. "See, Doctor? I always get what I want. Always." "That statuette won't give you anything," Derek said hoarsely. "Without understanding the Mayan language, you'll just break it." Vargas scoffed contemptuously. "I have my own experts. And even if I break it, it'll still be worth a fortune." He ordered his men to take the statuette to the temple exit. While Vargas's mercenaries were busy with their belongings, Derek noticed something. The moment Marcus lunged into the fight, his gaze fell on something in the corner. It was a small, almost unnoticeable protrusion in the wall that could be a hidden button or lever. Derek had to find a way to get to it. "You don't understand," Derek said, addressing Vargas. "This place is cursed. If you take anything without permission, the ancient Mayan spirits will take revenge on you." Vargas laughed loudly. "Spirits? Doctor, I only believe in money and power. Now, Miss Morales, I think you'll be more talkative if your friend is in danger." He walked up to Lena, pulled out his knife, and held it to her throat. "Don't you dare!" Derek shouted, trying to break free. All right, Doctor," Vargas said, pressing the knife lightly. "Then tell me, how do you open the door to the Golden Jaguar? Or your friend will have to suffer." At that moment, Lena, despite her fear, remained calm. Her gaze darted to Derek, then to the ancient hieroglyphs on the wall that they had been studying. She remembered the phrase, "When the sun kisses the stone, and the jaguar's shadow points the way, then its heart shall open." "Vargas, you're mistaken," Lena said calmly. You can't just take this. These aren't just treasures. This is a sacred place. And it's protected. Nonsense. Vargas waved her off. But if you want to know how to proceed, Lena continued, you'll need knowledge, not force. Vargas lowered the knife, intrigued. Go on, Miss Morales. I like your voice when it's full of useful information. It says here that the path opens when the Jaguar's shadow points the way. This isn't just a statuette, Lena said, pointing to the bronze figure held by one of the mercenaries. It's a sundial. And it must be placed in a specific spot to cast a shadow on the correct hieroglyph. Vargas looked at her suspiciously. A sundial? Inside a temple? That's senseless. Exactly. Lena said. Which means you have to be outside. And at a specific time of day. At dawn, when the sun is just beginning to rise. Derek caught her meaning. She was trying to lure Vargas out of the temple. This was their only chance. She's lying, shouted one of the mercenaries. She's just trying to trick us. No, Vargas said, his eyes narrowing. There's sense in this. The ancients were cunning. Take the statuette to the exit. And yes, Miss Morales, if this turns out to be a lie, I'll personally make you regret your birth. While Vargas's mercenaries headed for the exit, engrossed in the idea of quick riches, Derek gave Marcus a barely perceptible signal with his eyes. Marcus, still tied up, nodded. When most of the mercenaries had left the room, leaving only a few at the entrance, Derek made his move. With a swift tug, he freed himself from the ropes, which, fortunately, hadn't been tied too tightly. Marcus, seizing the confusion of the remaining guards, also freed himself. Run! Derek shouted to Lena. Lena, grabbing her bag of ancient scrolls, ran to a side niche she had noticed earlier. Derek and Marcus attacked the remaining mercenaries. It was a desperate struggle. Derek used his backpack as a shield, blocking blows, and Marcus, being more experienced in hand-to-hand combat, quickly neutralized one of the opponents. Meanwhile, Vargas, who had already gone outside the temple to place the statuette, heard the commotion. He realized he had been tricked. To me. They're trying to escape, he shouted. But it was too late. Lena, deftly slipping into the side niche, felt for the very protrusion Derek had noticed. It turned out to be a hidden lever. She pressed it. With a crash that echoed throughout the temple, a stone door leading deeper into the labyrinth slowly began to open, revealing a dark passage. The air in the passage was stale, but Derek knew it was their only way to safety. Here! Lena cried, beckoning them. Derek and Marcus, fighting off the approaching mercenaries, rushed towards the open passage. They barely managed to squeeze inside as the stone door began to slowly close with a clang. The last mercenary tried to stick his hand through, but the door slammed shut with a dull thud, cutting off their escape. They found themselves in complete darkness. The air was heavy and dusty, and the smells of antiquity permeated everything. Derek quickly pulled out his lantern. Its beam picked out a narrow corridor from the darkness, leading somewhere deep underground. You're brilliant, Lena. Derek gasped. Excellent move. You outwitted him. Lena was breathing heavily, her face pale, but pride gleamed in her eyes. I remembered that the Maya often used false trails to protect their treasures. And Vargas is too greedy to think of such details. Now we need to move, Marcus said, looking around. Who knows how long it will take Vargas to figure out how to open that door. They plunged deeper into the labyrinth, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The walls were smooth and cold, occasionally adorned with bizarre drawings. The air grew heavier. After a while, they came to a fork in the path. Which way now? Marcus asked. Derek pulled out the map. There are no precise instructions here. But look, there's something like a symbol. He pointed to a small circle with 3 dots. Lena peered closer. That's the 3-world symbol of the Maya. The upper world, the middle world, and the underworld. It means we're going down. So, we need to go down, Derek concluded. Looks like that's our way. They chose the right passage, which gradually began to descend, becoming narrower and darker. Soon they found themselves in a small chamber, in the center of which stood a stone altar. On the altar lay 3 objects, a jade necklace, an obsidian dagger, and a clay bowl. What is this? Lena whispered. Looks like offerings, Derek said. Or, a test. At that moment, a faint scratching sound came from somewhere above. It was Vargas. He had clearly found a way to open the door. We don't have time to think, Marcus said. We need to move. But Derek, like a true archaeologist, couldn't just walk past. He approached the altar, carefully examining each item. Hieroglyphs were carved into the wall behind the altar. Lena, look here, he said. What does it say? Lena quickly approached, her eyes scanning the symbols. It's not a direct instruction. It's a riddle. Choose with wisdom, for every choice has its price. The path to light lies through shadow, the path to life through sacrifice, the path to truth through deceit. Shadow, sacrifice, deceit. Derek murmured, trying to grasp the meaning. It could mean anything. Or everything, Lena said. We have to choose only one item. But which one? Marcus asked, listening intently to the sounds above. We don't have time for philosophizing. Derek looked at the items. The jade necklace, a symbol of wealth and power. The obsidian dagger, a symbol of strength and sacrifice. The clay bowl, a symbol of modesty and everyday life. The path to light lies through shadow. Derek repeated. If light is truth, then shadow is deceit. The clay bowl, it seems the most unassuming, but the Maya often hid the most valuable things in the most inconspicuous. Or it's just a trap, Marcus grimly noted. The rumbling from above grew louder. Vargas and his men were getting closer. I think it's the bowl, Derek said, reaching out his hand. If the path to life is through sacrifice, and the path to truth is through deceit, then the bowl might hold exactly what we need. Deceit in its simplicity. He carefully picked up the clay bowl. At that very moment, the ground beneath their feet trembled. A small section of the wall shifted, revealing another passage. Faster! Derek shouted, pointing to the new passage. They rushed forward as fast as they could, hearing Vargas's shouts and his mercenaries' cries behind them. They managed to slip into the passage just as Vargas and his men burst into the altar room. Damn them! Vargas roared. They got ahead of us. And what is this bowl? It's worthless. He kicked the altar with force. But Lena had caught Vargas's expression when he saw they took the bowl. A flicker of annoyance, but also something else, a slight bewilderment. As if he had expected them to take something different. They ran down the new passage, which led even deeper underground. The air grew colder and damper. The walls were adorned with frescoes depicting ancient rituals and mythological creatures. "We're in a real underground city," Lena said, gasping for breath. "This is incredible." "And this is just the beginning," Derek replied. "If we've understood the riddle correctly, then this bowl is our next key." Chapter 3, Trial by Elements. The passage led them to a large cave, bathed in a dim, greenish light filtering from somewhere above. In the center of the cave lay a vast underground lake, its calm surface reflecting the stalactites and stalagmites hanging from the ceiling. The air was permeated with the smell of dampness and antiquity. "Amazing," Lena whispered. "How did they build this?" "The Maya had incredible engineering skills," Derek replied. "But, how do we cross this lake? There's no boat." Marcus approached the edge of the lake, carefully dipping his hand into the water. "The water's cold, but not freezing. And the current isn't strong here." At that moment, from somewhere deep within the cave, the voices of Vargas and his mercenaries could be heard. They were catching up. "We have no choice," Derek said. "We have to swim." "Lena, can you swim?" Lena nodded. "Yes, but it's dangerous. Who knows what's down there?" "Better this than getting caught by Vargas," Marcus said decisively. They carefully entered the water. It was surprisingly warm, but the darkness of the lake was unsettling. Derek, holding his lantern above his head, swam ahead, illuminating the way. Lena and Marcus followed him. After a while, Derek noticed something strange. Something glowed beneath the surface of the water. These were ancient drawings on the lakebed, depicting underwater creatures and mysterious symbols. "Look," he said. "There's something here." They swam closer. The drawings were incredibly detailed, they seemed to glow from within. One of the symbols caught Derek's attention. It was the same "Three Worlds" symbol they had seen at the fork in the path. "The same symbol as on the map," Derek said. "And it points to a specific spot on the bottom." They dove deeper, following the glow. At the bottom of the lake, beneath a layer of silt, they discovered a small niche. Inside it lay a small stone disc, covered with the same hieroglyphs as the clay bowl. "It's the key," Lena gasped as they surfaced. This bowl, it wasn't just a trick. It was part of something bigger. Perhaps it was meant to cleanse this disc. Derek took out the bowl he had retrieved from the altar. It was empty. He scooped water from the lake into it and carefully poured it onto the stone disc. The water, as if by magic, disappeared, and the disc began to glow brighter, as if charged with energy. At that moment, Vargas and his men appeared at the edge of the lake. "There they are!" Vargas roared, his voice echoing through the cave, breaking its age-old silence. "Shoot them!" But before the mercenaries could aim, the disc Derek was holding began to vibrate. And then, with a loud click, a section of the wall on the other side of the lake slowly began to rise, revealing a new passage. "Swim!" Derek shouted, holding the disc high above his head. They rushed towards the open passage, swimming as fast as they could. Arrows and bullets from Vargas's mercenaries whizzed over their heads, splashing into the water. They dove underwater, swimming beneath crumbling rocks as the door almost completely closed. They surfaced in another, much narrower passage. The air here was hot and dry, smelling of sulfur. The walls were black, covered in soot, and glowing red symbols were visible on them. "What is this place?" Lena whispered, looking around. "Looks like a volcanic cave," Marcus replied, his voice strained. "It's very hot here." Derek looked at the disc again. The fire symbols on it were pulsating, and a faint red light began to emanate from the center of the disc. At that moment, Derek noticed a small hole in the chest of the stone jaguar, perfectly sized for the disc. "I think I know," he said. "The disc is the key. But for it to work, it has to be charged with fire." At that moment, Vargas's scream echoed from behind them. "They're there. Faster. Don't let them escape." Vargas's mercenaries appeared on the horizon, their silhouettes visible in the red glow of the cave. They were right behind them. "We don't have time," Marcus shouted. "I'll have to hold them off. You go on ahead." "No," Derek countered. "We won't leave you." "It's the only chance," Marcus insisted. "Go. I'll be fine." Without hesitation, Marcus charged towards the mercenaries. He was a master of combat in tight spaces, and his knowledge of the caves gave him an advantage. Derek and Lena, with heavy hearts, ran towards the bridge. The bridge was fragile, stones crumbling beneath their feet, and they could feel it sway. Every step was a test. When they were almost at the other side, they heard Marcus's cry. "Derek! Lena! Hurry!" They looked back. Marcus was fighting desperately, but there were too many mercenaries. Vargas, his face contorted with rage, was already approaching the bridge. "Do you really think you can stop me?" Vargas snarled. "I'll destroy everything to get what's mine." He pulled something resembling a small explosive from his belt. "Watch out!" Derek shouted. Vargas hurled the explosive onto the bridge, right at Marcus's feet. A deafening explosion ripped through the air. The bridge groaned and began to collapse. Marcus, though wounded, managed to leap aside, but a section of the bridge collapsed, cutting off their retreat. "Marcus!" Lena cried. "I'm fine." Marcus shouted back. "Go! Close the door. Don't let him through." Derek and Lena found themselves on the other side of the chasm. The bridge was destroyed, and Vargas could no longer pursue them. But Marcus was trapped. "We have to help him." Lena tried to turn back. "No, Lena." Derek grabbed her arm. He said it himself, "This is their only chance. We have to open that door. He trusted us." With a heavy heart, Derek approached the enormous door with the jaguar. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. He raised the disc, which was still glowing red, and carefully inserted it into the opening in the jaguar's chest. A low, rumbling sound reverberated throughout the cave. The stone walls trembled. The jaguar's eyes on the door glowed bright red, and its enormous jaws slowly parted, revealing an entrance to darkness. From deep within the passage came a hollow, powerful roar that made them shudder. It wasn't the sound of an animal. It was a sound emanating from the depths of the earth itself, a sound that seemed to belong to an ancient deity. "What was that?" Lena whispered. "I don't know," Derek replied, but his voice was filled with anticipation. "But it seems we found it. The lost city of the Golden Jaguar." Chapter 4: The Heart of the Jaguar. The massive stone door opened, revealing a passage into an even deeper and darker part of the temple. A chill emanated from within, and the air was thick with the scent of exotic incense and something else, elusive but profoundly ancient. The light from the disc, which Derek still held, dimly illuminated the walls covered with golden bas-reliefs depicting scenes from Mayan life, their gods, and rituals. This is impossible," Lena whispered, her eyes wide. "This isn't just a temple. It's an entire city underground. How could they have built such a thing?" "They had knowledge we are only beginning to discover," Derek replied, his voice trembling with excitement. He felt on the verge of the greatest discovery of his life. They cautiously stepped inside. The passage led them through a labyrinth of corridors that opened into majestic halls. The walls and columns were covered with gold, precious stones, and jade inlays, which gleamed faintly in the light of their lantern. Golden statues of gods and rulers stood in niches, their eyes seemingly following their every move. This is a treasure," Lena gasped, running her hand over one of the golden statues. "But it's not just gold. It's filled with history, art, knowledge. That's why we have to protect it from Vargas," Derek said. He heard a dull thud from behind, coming from beyond the locked door. Vargas was trying to break through. They continued moving and soon found themselves in a vast hall, in the center of which stood a massive altar made of black obsidian. Around the altar, on pedestals, stood 7 enormous statues of jaguars, made of pure gold. Their eyes were inlaid with huge, sparkling emeralds. "The Golden Jaguar," Lena whispered. 7 of them. But why? Derek approached the altar. Carved on it was another, more complex set of hieroglyphs. "Lena, look here," he said. "What does it say?" Lena leaned over the altar, carefully studying the symbols. It's not a direct instruction. It's a riddle. It speaks of 7 keepers. Each jaguar symbolizes one of the Mayan principles: knowledge, wisdom, strength, sacrifice, truth, peace, and life. "And what does that mean?" Derek asked. "It says that only one who understands all 7 principles can gain access to the heart of the jaguar," Lena replied. "And that the heart of the jaguar is not just a treasure, but a source of energy or power. It's unclear here." At that moment, a deafening explosion ripped from behind them. The stone door they had just passed through shuddered. Vargas was breaking through. "We have little time," Derek said. "We need to figure out how to activate this altar." He looked at the 7 golden jaguars. Each of them was incredibly beautiful, but one of them, the one symbolizing knowledge, stood out in a special way. In its mouth was a hollow, perfectly sized for the disc Derek still held. "Try inserting the disc here," Lena suggested. "Maybe this is the beginning." Derek carefully inserted the disc into the mouth of the golden jaguar. At that very instant, a stream of light burst from the statue's eyes, sweeping across the entire hall, illuminating the other 6 jaguars. As the light touched each statue, their eyes also lit up, and beams of light also emanated from them, creating a complex web of light rays intersecting above the altar. "This is incredible," Lena gasped. But at that moment, Vargas and his mercenaries burst into the hall. The stone door had been blasted off its hinges, and Vargas, his face distorted with rage, stormed inside. "There it is," he shouted, seeing the golden statues. "Mine. All mine." He immediately ordered his men to start collecting the treasures. The mercenaries rushed towards the statues, trying to pry the emeralds from the jaguar's eyes. "Stop!" Derek cried. "You're destroying what you can't understand." "I only understand the price, Doctor," Vargas sneered. "And the price of these gems will be enormous. But as one of the mercenaries tried to pry an emerald from the statue's eye, a deafening rumble sounded. The ground trembled. The light rays emanating from the jaguar's eyes began to pulsate, growing brighter. "What is that?" Vargas shouted, recoiling. At that moment, one of the Golden Jaguar statues, the one symbolizing sacrifice, began to slowly turn. From its base, a small pedestal extended, on which lay something that looked like a small, jade-carved heart. "The heart of the jaguar," Lena whispered. "This is what the legend spoke of." Vargas, seeing the jade heart, forgot everything else. His eyes gleamed with greed. "This is it. The real treasure." He rushed towards the pedestal. "No, Vargas, don't touch it," Derek shouted. "You don't know what it is." But Vargas didn't listen. He snatched the jade heart. At that very instant, a blinding beam of light erupted from the altar, striking Vargas directly. He screamed, thrown backward. The jade heart in his hand began to glow, and then slowly but surely, turned to dust. Vargas stared at his hands, his face filled with horror. What is this?" he whispered. "It's a curse," Derek said calmly. "You tried to take what wasn't yours, without respect. The ancient Mayan spirits protect their treasures." At that moment, from the depths of the hall, a dull but powerful roar echoed throughout the cave, making the walls tremble. The ground beneath their feet shook more violently, and hot steam began to escape from cracks in the floor. "Earthquake!" Lena cried. "We have to get out." The golden statues began to crumble, their parts falling to the floor with a deafening clang. The altar cracked. The cave ceiling began to collapse. "Faster, to the exit!" Derek shouted, grabbing Lena's hand. Vargas's mercenaries, engulfed in panic, scattered. Vargas himself, still stunned by what had happened, tried to get up. "You won't get it," he roared, his gaze filled with madness. He lunged at Derek, trying to grab him. Derek dodged. Vargas, blinded by rage, tripped over a falling rock and crashed to the floor. At that moment, part of the ceiling collapsed directly on him, burying him under the rubble. The lost city of the Golden Jaguar was claiming its victim. Derek and Lena, overcoming falling rocks and the roaring chaos, ran towards the hall's exit. They heard the mercenaries' screams, some were trying to escape, others remained buried under the debris. When they reached the hall's entrance, the last section collapsed. They found themselves in the narrow corridor they had passed through earlier. "We have to find Marcus," Lena cried. They ran back to where Marcus had been fighting Vargas's mercenaries. When they reached the edge of the collapsed bridge, their hearts sank. "Marcus!" Derek shouted. A faint groan came from the darkness. "I'm here." Marcus was wounded but alive. He lay on the edge of the abyss, pressed against the wall. His arm was bleeding. "We have to get him out," Lena said. Derek, using his rope, which he always carried with him, carefully lowered it to Marcus. "Grab on," he shouted. Marcus, gathering all his strength, grabbed the rope. Derek and Lena, working together, slowly began to pull him up. It was difficult, but they didn't give up. Every step they took was accompanied by rumbling and collapses. Finally, Marcus was pulled up. He was pale, but a faint smile appeared on his face. "I told you I'd be fine," he croaked. "You're crazy," Derek said, embracing his friend with relief. They continued their journey, making their way out of the crumbling temple. The earthquake continued, and they had to be extremely careful. Finally, they reached the temple entrance. The ancient stone door was broken, and sunlight streamed through it. They emerged into the bright jungle light, breathing heavily. The temple behind them continued to collapse, its ancient walls slowly settling, being swallowed by the earth. The lost city of the Golden Jaguar was returning to the embrace of the jungle, taking its secrets with it. They were exhausted, dirty, and wounded, but relief and triumph were etched on their faces. They had saved the ancient treasures from Vargas's greedy hands. They had fulfilled their mission. Epilogue: New Beginnings. Weeks later, after Marcus's wounds had healed and they had returned to civilization, Derek and Lena sat in their university office, poring over their notes and photographs. They had managed to retrieve only a few small artifacts that had not been damaged by the destruction. "We couldn't get the heart of the jaguar," Lena said thoughtfully. "But perhaps that's for the best. It was too powerful. Not for human hands." "Perhaps," Derek replied. "But we gained something far more valuable. Knowledge. We confirmed the existence of the lost city. We learned more about the Maya than anyone before us. Their discovery caused a sensation in the scientific world. Despite most of the treasures being buried underground, the evidence of the lost city of the Golden Jaguar's existence was undeniable. Photographs, notes, a few artifacts, all confirmed their story. Marcus, having recovered, decided to continue his work as a guide, but now he was even more respected and renowned. He became a living legend, the man who survived in the lost city. Derek and Lena continued their research. The story of Vargas, who perished beneath the temple's rubble, became a warning to all who sought to profit from ancient civilizations. One evening, as Derek and Lena sat in their office, organizing their latest materials, Lena discovered something strange. In one of the photographs taken in the Hall of Golden Jaguars, she noticed a barely discernible symbol she hadn't seen before. "Derek, look here," she said. Derek leaned over the photograph. The symbol was almost imperceptible, but now that she pointed it out, it was there. It was a symbol they hadn't seen in other images. It resembled a bird soaring above the sun. "What is that?" Derek asked. Lena frowned. It's a symbol of freedom. And rebirth. And, it's not from the common Mayan language. It's from an older dialect." "Older?" Derek's interest was piqued. "Yes," Lena replied. "And there's something else here. It looks like coordinates." She pointed to a series of dots and lines barely visible in the photograph. Derek took the photograph and examined it closely. A smile appeared on his face. "It seems we have a new adventure, Lena," he said. "It looks like the lost city of the Golden Jaguar held one more secret. A secret that led somewhere else. Perhaps to the source of energy the legend spoke of. Or to an even greater mystery." Lena smiled back, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. "Then it's time to pack our bags, Derek," she said. "The jungle calls." The end.